Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, starring the entire Nelson family, Ozzie, Harriet, David, and Ricky. Here is Ozzie, who plays the part of Ozzie Nelson. And, of course, his lovely wife, Harriet, as Harriet Nelson. The older of the Nelson boys, David, appears as David Nelson. And his younger brother, the irrepressible Ricky, played by Ricky Nelson. The Nelsons' next-door neighbor, Thorny, is played by Don DeFore.
Nay, cannot be overestimated.
Did you call me, dear?
No, I was just talking to myself.
Oh. Did you have a nice conversation?
Well, I wasn't exactly talking to myself. I was just trying to figure out a subject for my speech tomorrow.
What speech is that?
Well, you know, the big one at the Chamber of Commerce. Dunkel is the chairman of the committee.
Oh, sure. I didn't realize that was tomorrow.
Yeah. The big luncheon.
And you mean you haven't even picked out a subject yet?
Well, I have a system that never fails. It works for any kind of a speech you want to make.
I don't want to make any, thank you. But I must admit you've aroused my curiosity.
Well, it's kind of an outline. You see, you use the same beginning regardless of what the topic is. The beginning goes like this. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied, "It is a lack of thoroughness." A good example of this is, and then, you see, you insert your topic. For instance, suppose you were discussing, safety on the highways. You'd say, when asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied, "It is a lack of thoroughness." A good example of this is safety on the highways. We can make the highways much safer. We can prevent many accidents if we will pass one law. Make driving illegal for women.
Hey, wait a minute.
Well, you see, you get the general idea of it. You see, if you have a good beginning and a good ending to a speech, then you can sort of flounder around in the middle of it and nobody realizes it.
Sounds logical. How do you end it?
Well, then you see, you work the deal around to where you say, here is the opportunity to correct the problem that you've been discussing. See, that gives you a chance to work in this little joke about opportunity. Would you like to hear it?
I probably have.
Anyway, it's kind of an amusing little joke. It seems that this night watchman was making his way through the park, and this young couple, this boy and girl, were sitting on the park bench. And the night watchman was carrying this lantern.
A lantern?
Well, it's a pretty old joke. Anyway, the night watchman comes up to the boy and the girl, and he says, say, young feller, are you kissing that girl? And the young boy's kind of scared. He says, no, sir, no, sir. And the old guy says, well, here, son, hold my lantern.
I didn't realize you went to high school that long ago.
Well, it's not a terrific joke, but it puts them in a good mood. See, and then from there you say, and here is the opportunity to alleviate whatever the condition is that exists, and you discuss that, and then you go into the finish. For the finish, you recite that immortal poem, Opportunity. Master of human destinies am I. Fame, love, and fortune.
Yes, I remember it, yeah.
It's got a stirring finish. I like that old poem. But he who hesitates or doubts is condemned to failure, penury, and woe. Seek me in vain and uselessly implore. I answer not, and I return no more.
It is rather overpowering.
Yeah, it's one of those things where even though you don't know what the guy's talking about, it sounds pretty good.
Well, it does have an important ring to it. It's quite a plan.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it can be used for absolutely any topic.
Well, I can see that. Reminds me of a woman who spoke at our club the other day.
Somebody say something about a speech?
Oh, hi, boys.
Hi, Mom.
Hiya, Mom.
Hi, fella.
Hiya, Pop.
Please don't mention the word speech. I have to make one in English class tomorrow.
So what?
What do you mean, so what? I'd like to see you do it.
That's how much you know, wise guy. So happens I'm making a very important speech.
Now, isn't that something?
Oh, it's really nothing.
You're not kidding. It'll be nothing if you give it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. Before you guys run out of breath, I think you should both know that you're not the only ones going to make a speech around here. Your father's going to be the main speaker of the Chamber of Commerce luncheon tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, for some reason they selected your old man.
Are you going to make a political speech, Bob?
Oh, well, I'm not sure. Not necessarily. I haven't decided yet.
Well, I'm making a political speech.
Oh, good for you. What office is your man running for?
He's going to be our next president.
Say, this sounds interesting. Could we have his name?
Sure. Iggy Magoo.
Iggy for president?
Sure. He'll be the best president our homeroom ever had.
He has to get elected first.
He can't lose. I'm handling the champagne.
He means campaign.
I mean champagne. We're serving ginger ale right after the speech.
You guys sound like you're doing this in big style.
Oh, sure, just like the politicians. We're even going around kissing all the babes.
You mean babies.
Who's running this show anyway?
Well, I must admit that confidence seems to run in the family. Your father hasn't even decided on a subject for his speech tomorrow.
Aren't you nervous, Pop?
Oh, not especially, David. I'm not too worried about it.
How come?
Well, I've got a little gimmick that makes it easy.
You mean you give away stuff?
No, nothing like that. I was just telling your mother before. Back in high school, our English teacher taught us sort of an outline that works for just about any speech you want to make.
Is it hard to learn?
No, in fact, it's very easy. You see, you begin every speech the same way. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied, it is a lack of thoroughness. A good example of this is traffic accidents on the highway.
Look out now.
Or whatever subject you may choose.
That sounds neat, Pop.
Then you finally work the conversation around to opportunity, then you tell a little joke.
How do you work it around to opportunity?
You do it very subtly, of course. For instance, you could say, and speaking of opportunity, and then you go on to say that this is the opportunity to correct whatever situation you're discussing.
That sounds neat, Pop.
Anyway, and then you say, and what is opportunity? Master of human destinies am I.
That's fine, dear.
It's a very fine old poem. It has a wonderfully strong finish, too. Seek me in vain, and uselessly implore. I answer not, and I return no more.
Vote for Iggy Magoo.
When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, when asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, when asked what is the greatest fault of the American people.
Hi, Oz.
Oh, hi, Thorny.
Hey, what's this I hear about you're going to make a speech?
It's really nothing. Just going to give a little talk over the Chamber of Commerce. You know that big special luncheon they're having?
Yeah.
I'm going to be the chief speaker.
Oh, that's a shame. Can't you get out of it?
What do you mean, get out of it?
Well, you can tell him something. Tell him you lost your voice.
Oh, no, Thorny. I want to make the speech.
You want to make it?
Well, of course.
Well, in that case, tell him the truth. Tell him you snapped your cap.
Thorny, what are you talking about?
Oh, Oz, now you're not really serious about this thing.
Well, I am, too.
Okay, Oz, suit yourself. But you couldn't get me to stand up in front of that bunch for $1 million. I've seen some pretty big men lay some awfully big eggs at those luncheons.
Oh, Thorny, don't be silly.
Okay, Oz. But when you're up there shaking like a leaf, don't say I didn't warn you.
There's nothing to be nervous about, Thorny. They're all good friends.
Uh-huh. Well, Herb Dunkel didn't look nervous either, till he poured himself a glass of water, then almost drowned himself trying to drink out of the pitcher.
Well, you must admit it was good for a big laugh.
Remember the day Joe Randolph made the speech?
Yeah.
His knees were knocked so loud, I got up 3 times to answer the door. Oh, believe me, Oz, if I were you, I'd try to duck this thing.
Well, what about the guy last week? He was very well received from what they tell me.
Well, sure. As a matter of fact, he was terrific. Weren't you there?
No, I couldn't make it.
Oh, sure. But he was a professional speaker. Had a regular set routine and everything. Which is another thing. He's going to be pretty tough to follow.
Oh, well, what you don't know, Thorny, is I have sort of a set formula myself. It's been good for years. Really surefire.
Yeah? What's that?
Well, it's a set introduction that can be used for any occasion. When asked, what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied...
Theodore Roosevelt?
Theodore Roosevelt replied.
Oh, Theodore Roosevelt was a great guy in his time, but this group is modern, up to date.
Thorny, I told you before, I've used this routine successfully for many years.
Oh, please, you're going to be speaking to intelligent people. You can't use some corny high school routine.
Oh, it's corny now, is it?
Oh, now, wait a minute, Oz. Don't get excited. I'm only trying to tell you this for your own good.
Well, please don't trouble yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry I mentioned it.
You're just jealous because you weren't selected as the main speaker.
Oh, sure, that's it exactly.
Well, you know darn well I'll go down there and I'll put on a great show for them.
I'm sure you'll put on a great show.
I'm not the type of guy who quits on a thing like this. I'll make a good speech if it kills me.
I'm sure it will. And Oz, I couldn't think of a more horrible way to die. Well, I think I've said about enough for now. But if I think of anything else, I'll give you a call.
Don't bother, I might not be home.
Now, wait a minute. Yeah, there is one more thing before I leave.
Such as what?
Good luck, Oz. My blessings go with you.
Mr. Chairman and friends. Gentlemen of the Chamber of Commerce. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied, "Here, you hold the lantern." Well, good morning.
Good morning, dear. How do you feel?
Well, considering the fact that I only had about 4 hours sleep, I feel pretty bad.
Well, I think a little breakfast will help that.
Is your speech all set yet, Pop?
Well, pretty nearly, David. Not exactly all set, but I have some ideas pretty well lined up.
I think I have a pretty good speech for school today.
Oh, that's good. Say, would you like me to look it over for you and... No, never mind. I guess there's nothing there I could copy anyway.
I got a couple of jokes you could tell, Pop.
Pop's already got a joke to tell.
You could tell another one, can he?
What is
This
it?
is in the form of a question. Did you hear what the skunk said when the wind changed?
It all comes back to me now.
Okay, wise guy.
That's the original joke.
Have you got your speech all set, dear?
Well, as I was saying to David, it's not exactly set, Harriet, but I have my ideas pretty well formulated.
Well, how about that outline your high school teacher taught you? That sounded pretty good to me.
Well, I've been thinking that over, Harriet, and after all, these are pretty intelligent men I'm going to be talking to today, and I'm not sure that a corny old high school routine like that would be very effective.
Well, it sounded good to me.
I thought of a couple of good beginnings last night. There's one of them just where I fell asleep. Gentlemen, we are here today. We are here today.
And gone tomorrow.
Gentlemen, I know you're wondering why I'm here today. Come in.
Hello, Oz.
Oh, hiya, Don. Say, you're a little early, aren't you? Luncheon doesn't start till 12:30. Sit down, though.
Thank you. I want to speak to you about the luncheon, Oz. Oh, dear, this is terribly embarrassing, too.
What's embarrassing?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of Lieutenant Colonel Rex Farnsworthy.
Well, I believe so. He's in the Army, isn't he?
Yes, that's the fellow. Anyway, he's passing through town today on his way to Washington. Just returned from a very hush-hush mission overseas. You know, top military secret stuff. He's written a book all about it.
He sounds like a very important man.
Oh, yes, he is. You can imagine what a busy man he must be, too. And you can also imagine what an honor it would be to get a person like Colonel Farnsworthy to speak at the luncheon.
Oh, yes, of course.
Well, we got him.
I thought you said he'd just be in town for today.
Oh, I really feel dreadful about this, Oz.
Oh, that's okay, Doc.
You don't mind?
Oh, no. It's perfectly all right.
Well, whatever you say, Oz. I want to apologize again for this last-minute cancellation.
Oh, forget about it, Dunk. After all, I'm sure you'll find the Colonel much more interesting.
Well, this is very sporting of you, Oz. I just want to say you've been bully about this.
Oh, thanks, Dunk.
Oh, you've been more than just bully. You've been bully. Oh, really, Oz, you're all bully and a bully wide.
Ozzie. Ozzie. Dinner's almost ready.
Dinner? Oh, for goodness sake. Just thought I'd lie down here and rest my eyes for a few minutes. I must have slept most of the afternoon.
Well, I thought I'd better wake you up for dinner. Besides, I wanted to tell you about the meeting.
Meeting? What meeting?
The meeting at the Women's Club.
Oh, yes. How did it work out?
It couldn't have been better. Now ask me what they decided about the playground.
Okay, what did they decide about the playground?
They're all for it, but it took a short impromptu speech by Mrs. Ozzie Nelson to turn the tide.
Wait a minute. You made a speech?
Yes, I did. And if I do say so myself, it went over very well.
Well, good for you.
How about your speech?
Oh, well, never mind mine. Tell me more about yours.
Well, I began it like this. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied...
You mean you gave my speech?
Yes, I did, most of it. I hope you don't mind.
No, of course not. I'm glad it went over so well.
Might be pretty embarrassing if any of the women are married to members of the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Pop.
Oh, hello, David.
Hello, David.
How did your speech go in school?
Oh, swell. The teacher said it was one of the best she'd ever heard.
Why, that's wonderful, dear.
Good.
The joke about the lantern really got a big laugh.
Oh, you used my joke?
Heck, I used practically your whole speech.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, hi,
Hi,
son.
dear.
Wait till you hear what happened. Dickie McGoo won by you, man. He won by you next. He got all the votes.
Well, good for him.
Well, that's wonderful, dear. Did you make a good campaign speech?
I sure did, boy. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt said, Dickie McGoo for president.
That isn't what Theodore Roosevelt said.
So what? Nobody in our class knew him.
That routine of mine got quite a workout today. Your mother used it and David used it?
He did.
Yeah, very successfully, I understand.
Hey, what's the idea to use my speech, David?
Your speech is Pop's speech.
Say, we all seem to have forgotten about your father.
Yeah, how did you do, Pop?
I bet you did terrific, boy.
I'll bet he did, too.
Oh, well, to tell the truth, I didn't have to give my speech.
Why not?
Dunk stopped by and explained the whole thing. It seemed the committee decided they'd rather have some colonel give a speech. In fact, he wasn't even a colonel, just a lieutenant colonel.
Well, I think that's awful. Do they know that you stayed up half the night preparing that speech?
Oh, well, after all, Harriet, it's probably just as well. Frankly, I'm just as glad they didn't call me. I was a little relieved to get out of it. Oh, come to think of it, I was worked up to just the proper pitch.
Well, I think it's a shame. Well, dinner's just about ready. Will you boys set the table for me?
Sure, Mom.
Yes, sir.
I'll help, too.
No, relax, dear. I'll call you when dinner's on the table.
Okay.
Come on in, Thorny.
Hi, Harriet.
Thorny.
Hi, Oz.
Oh, hi, Thorny, old boy.
Oz, old pal, I want to ask a favor of you.
Anything except money.
I know it's an imposition to ask you to make 2 speeches in one day.
What's this, Thorny? You want me to make a speech?
Well, now, look, Oz, if it's going to work any hardships on you, I don't want you to do it.
Oh, no, I'd be happy to, Thorny.
Oh, Oz, that's wonderful of you. Ordinarily, I wouldn't bother you with this, but it's such a big occasion. You see, it's a dinner speech.
No, wait a minute. I think I've read about that in the paper. It's a banquet at the Elks Club, isn't it?
No, that's another affair.
Oh, I know. No, it's that big wing thing they're having over at the men's club. Who's chairman of the committee?
So let me explain it to you, will you?
Well, go ahead.
Now, first, you know Charlie McGillicuddy.
Charlie. Oh, that's right. His son is graduating from college at the midterms. Say, Thorny, don't tell me they want me to make the main speech at the graduation exercises.
No, Oz. Will you listen a moment?
Okay, go ahead.
Now, I'm sure you've eaten at Charlie's Diner.
Well, certainly I've eaten there lots of times.
Well, this is a big night in Charlie's life. He's just added 3 more stools at the counter and a booth for ladies. And tonight at 10 o'clock is his grand opening.
You're supposed to be given in Charlie's Diner?
That's right. And there'll be free hamburgers in it for both of us.
Thorny, I thought you said it was supposed to be a dinner speech.
Of course. A lot of people will be eating dinner. After all, it is a diner.
I know, Thorny, but this is ridiculous.
Oh, now, Oz, I promised Charlie you'd make the speech.
Well, you can just tell Charlie that... I mean, of all the silly things, Thorny. After all, making a speech... When asked, what is the greatest fault of the American people? Theodore Roosevelt replied, it is a lack of thirst. Although at first blush it may seem to belie the dictum of this famous statesman, nevertheless our own Charlie McGillicuddy has left no stone unturned, has seized every opportunity to make this delightful little establishment the finest in our community. And speaking of opportunity reminds me of a little story you might enjoy. It seems a night watchman was going through the park with his... The night watchman was carrying this lantern.
A lantern?
Well, it's a pretty old joke. Anyway, the night watchman comes up to the boy and girl, and he says, say, young feller, are you kissing that girl? And the young boy's kind of scared. He says, no, sir, no, sir. And the old guy says, well, here, son, hold my lantern.
I didn't realize you went to high school that long ago.
Well, it's not a terrific joke, but it puts him in a good mood. See, and then from there you say, and here is the opportunity to alleviate whatever the... Have a good beginning and a good ending to a speech, then you can sort of flounder around in the middle of it and nobody realizes it.
Sounds logical. How do you end it?
Well, then you see, you work the deal around to where you say, here is the opportunity to correct the problem that you've been discussing. See, that gives you a chance to work in this little joke about opportunity. Would you like to hear it?
I probably have.
Well, anyway, it's kind of an amusing little joke. It seems that this night watchman was making his way through the park, and this young couple, this boy and girl, were sitting on the park bench.
Nice conversation?
Well, I wasn't exactly talking to myself. I was just trying to figure out a subject for my speech tomorrow.
What speech is that?
Well, you know, the big one at the Chamber of Commerce. Dunkel is the chairman of the committee.
Oh, sure. I didn't realize that was tomorrow.
Yeah. The big luncheon.
And you mean you haven't even picked out a subject yet?
Well, I have a system that never fails. It works for any kind of a speech you want to make.
I don't want to make any, thank you. But I must admit you've aroused my curiosity.
Well, it's kind of an outline. You see, you use the same beginning regardless of what the topic is. The beginning goes like this. When asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, The
Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, starring the entire Nelson family, Ozzie, Harriet, David, and Ricky. Here is Ozzie, who plays the part of Ozzie Nelson. And, of course, his lovely wife, Harriet, as Harriet Nelson. The older of the Nelson boys, David, appears as David Nelson. And his younger brother, the irrepressible Ricky, played by Ricky Nelson. The Nelson's next-door neighbor, Thorny, is played by Don DeFore.
nay cannot be overestimated.
Did you call me, dear?
No, I was just talking to myself.
Oh. Do you have an idea?
Theodore Roosevelt replied, it is a lack of thoroughness. A good example of this is, and then you see, you insert your topic. For instance, suppose you were discussing, safety on the highways. You'd say, when asked what is the greatest fault of the American people, Theodore Roosevelt replied, It is a lack of fairness. A good example of this is safety on the highways. We can make the highways much safer. We can prevent many accidents if we will pass one law. Make driving illegal for women.
Hey, wait a minute.
Well, you see, you get the general idea of it. I mean, you see, if you